We're going to talk about how to read Prabhupada's books. And people ask, well, where should I start? And how much should I read? And can I read many books at the same time? What book is first, second, like that? So we want to look at that. The other thing is we want to look at how you can be steady in reading, because steadily reading is recommended in the Bhagavatam. It's actually, Prabhupada wants us to read every day. So think of reading like medicine, think of it like diet. You should do it every day. So one of the things that I've found that works really well is if you set aside a time for reading. I once read an article that said, make an appointment with yourself. And I found this to be one of the best advices I've ever been given. I just can't find time to do this. Well, if you can't find time to do this, make an appointment for yourself. Oh, I have an appointment every morning at 7:30 to read Prabhupada's books. Now, obviously, it's easier if you have another person to read with. And reading out loud with another person is another dimension of reading. Reading and discussing is very powerful. Some of us like to read quietly by ourselves. Some devotees say it takes on a different dimension, even if you're reading alone, to read out loud, to hear that vibration. So that's something you can experiment with. Reading to yourself silently, as we normally do, and then reading out loud. And if you can get a buddy or two or three, a reading group, discussion group, that's fantastic. You may not be able to do it every day, but if you can do it once a week, that's, your Srila Prabhupada reading club. So, steadiness. Try to do it every day. Now, so how do you do that? Well, you make a time and you make some commitment. I will read so much. It could either be pages or it can be time. Now, what I found personally, and I don't know if everybody could do this, but I found personally that a good diet of reading Prabhupada's books, which would ensure that I'm spiritually strong, is 2 hours a day. Now, not everybody has 2 hours. A lot of devotees feel pretty good if they can read 20 minutes. So I would say gradually you want to work up to a couple hours a day, because if you do, then you can get through all of Prabhupada's books a few times or more in your life, and it's something you should want to do. And as we were saying before, reading is like eating food. So the more you read, the more you're getting this healthy, transcendental spiritual food. So, but at least set aside at least 20, 30 minutes a day, and set aside a time that at this time I could read every day and I won't be disturbed. For myself personally, it's early in the morning. I set aside that time, and if I do it early in the morning, guaranteed it works. If I do it later in the day, sometimes it doesn't work. In the morning, of course, is the time you absorb more. Did you know that you absorb probably twice or 3 times as much information and remember it in the morning when your mind is awake? All you night owls, you should pay attention, because the morning is the time to read. So, now, Prabhupada also said, read systematically. Now, systematically means begin in chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4. So if you're going to read Bhagavad-gita, you start chapter 1, go through it. You're going to read Srimad Bhagavatam, you start and gradually go through it. So that way we get it, because the books build up. And so they start with themes and foundations, which we need, and they build up. Now, there's a problem for some people, because some people might say, I don't like to read, and unless I read something that I'm interested in, I'm not going to read. So I will grant you that. It doesn't dismiss the idea we should read systematically, but if you're in a situation where you're not a reader, or you find reading spiritual literature not overly attractive and inspiring, then find something in Prabhupada's books, or some book, something that attracts you, that you can get absorbed in, like maybe reading Prabhupada Leela Amrita. In other words, you want to build your habit of reading every day. So find something that's easy to read. You won't need a lot of inspiration to read it. You just like to read it, and you start building your habit. And once you build your habit, then you can begin your systematic reading. Now, another suggestion, which is really, really powerful, and it doesn't take long, which I suggest you try, is try reading a chapter of Bhagavad-gita in English. It'll take you 5, 10, 12 minutes. 1 chapter every day. It's like a power-packed smoothie. chock full of vitamins and minerals. You just read it. You don't even have to worry. Just read it, and you'll experience the transcendental nature of reading a chapter of the Gita. Just the verses. Of course, you can read the purports. You can go back and read the purports. But just that practice, every day reading it, it's very, very powerful. So, if you're new to Krishna consciousness, where do you start? Bhagavad-gita. That's the main book. Get a basic understanding of the Gita. If you go online, there are many people teaching the Gita if you need help. That's the main book. That's the basis of our philosophy. Everything is based on that. So, I read the Bhagavad-gita 2 times in 10 weeks, and then I decided to become a devotee. So there's no harm in reading the Bhagavad-gita over and over again. And then, where do I go from here? Our main book is Srimad Bhagavatam. So, reading a little bit of Srimad Bhagavatam every day. There's 12 cantos. At 41 pages, it takes you a year. At 20 pages, it takes you 2 years. At 10 pages, it takes you 3 years. It's a big book. But it is the cream, it is the essence, our whole philosophy, everything is there in the Bhagavatam. But there's another book called Nectar of Devotion, which is very important because it outlines the practices of devotional service. And there's another 2 books that are very important, Nectar of Instruction and Isopanishad. And of course, there's Krishna book, which is Krishna's pastimes, which we should be absorbed in. And then there's Chaitanya Charitamrita, which you read after you read Srimad Bhagavatam. It's the postgraduate study. And there's Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which is summary study of Chaitanya Charitamrita. So now you're saying, Mahatma Prabhu, you've given me so much to read. Yes, Prabhupada said, you cannot read everything I've written, even in one lifetime. There's so much to read. Bhagavad-gita, Isopanishad, Nectar of Instruction, Nectar of Devotion, Bhagavatam. These are the books we should be moving through first. When you finish those, you're ready for Chaitanya Charitamrita. But the main idea is develop a habit of reading Prabhupada's books every day. It's the best habit you could ever want to have. And especially if you're going to be teaching other people Krishna consciousness, you have to learn Prabhupada's books. Otherwise, what are you going to share? And if you want to get initiated, it's an absolute requirement. If you want to get second initiated, it's an absolute, definite requirement, because as a Brahmin, you're a teacher, you're meant to be knowledgeable, you're meant to understand Prabhupada's heart, Prabhupada's mood. As we said, Prabhupada said, if you want to know me, read my books. As members of ISKCON, we need to understand how Prabhupada is giving us Krishna consciousness. He's taking all the teachings of the Acharyas, he's putting them specifically for us on a plate and said, this is what it all means. Making it simple, giving us conclusions by which we can understand exactly how we're entangled in the material world, how to get out of the material world, and how to practice Krishna consciousness, and also how to understand what is right in the religious field. There's so many ideas, and what about this and that, and sometimes we get confused, but Prabhupada has clarified all that. So his books are extremely, extremely important in our spiritual life, and we need to develop a habit of daily spending time with those books. You will see that it's the best habit you could ever possibly have. So the last thing I want to tell you about how to get the most from reading comes from the Vedas. They say there's 3 stages. One is you hear, one is you reflect, and then one is you assimilate it into your life. How will you apply this into your life? And there's another 4th thing that goes on. It's prayer that is interwoven between all of these stages. So you enter in a prayerful mood. Krishna revealed to me what I need to learn. Please help me learn. Please give me mercy so I can understand more. So when you hear, the scripture says you should hear with faith. You should hear with reverence. You should hear with attention. 3 things. So when you're reading, turn your world off, just like we said during japa. Give your attention. The scripture says, for example, Srimad Bhagavatam is Krishna. It's the literary incarnation of Krishna. So the book is like a deity. So now you're with a deity, so you want to give your attention to it. Respect or reverence means you are going to try to apply what you're learning. You respect the source. And faith means that you're open to learning, even if you don't understand, even if it doesn't even make sense to you, but you're still open to try to understand it, not just to analyze it with your intelligence, but to have your heart open. So the second stage is now you're reflecting. Well, what did I read? What does this mean? And just trying to assimilate that information. So you're trying to start to getting it out of your head into this process of getting it into your heart to understand more what it means practically and philosophically. You're just trying to go deeper. And the third stage really is to get into your heart, which is application. Now, how do I take this and apply it to my life? What does it mean today for me when I go, I've just read this morning, so how can I apply this to my life today? Or how can I apply it to problems I have? Or how can I just apply it in general? Now, there's a fourth principle which is interwoven between all of these principles, and that's prayer. So we enter in a prayerful mood. Krishna, please reveal to me what I need to understand. Please help me go deeper in understanding this message. Just allow me your mercy so that something can wear off, because transcendental knowledge is not always easy to penetrate. So we're in this mood that allow these words to work on me. These words are Krishna. The Srimad Bhagavatam is Krishna. We're associating with Krishna in his words. So it's a very sacred time, and I'm asking for your mercy to allow me to go deeper into this message.